So we're moving right into it. And Ken, did you want to say anything before Tom and I go? Or is it me first?
You're first, I'm second, Tom's third.
Yes, got it. All right. My forward-looking thoughts have to do with this. Destiny. And by the way, page 215, and that was back to the Trinity Teacher Sons, section 1 on this paper of Trinity Teacher Sons, talks about the importance of origin, history, and destiny. We didn't read that part of that section, but the method of problem solving on Urantia is that, on any planet, is to know the origin of whatever it is, your planetary issue or problem, the origin, the history of that issue or problem, and the future, looking at problem solving with an eye to the future. So that origin, history, destiny has guided a lot of us over the years when we look at a particular topic such as history. How do you put history in the context of origin and destiny? So just wanted to add that in from the short references we've been able to read aloud together today. So that's where we got the overall theme for the day. So now we're looking forward. And also this final session with some discussion time afterwards is really the celebratory part. I think all of us, Ken and Tom and I, who've worked on this, really, and others in the room helping us, this 100-year celebration has caused us to see just how much growth there has been in only 100 years of the revelation. So that's one of the topics that we've all been celebrating, is we live sort of what's going on in life right now, but this perspective of the success of the fifth epical revelation to date is really very encouraging under difficult conditions, to say the least. So the future, I wanted to share two things about the future. One is what it means to be in Michael's post-bestowal age. Now in the Urantia book, the reference would be paper 52 and page 97, and it's sections 5 and 6, where both the normal post-bestowal sun age on a normal planet can take from 10,000 years to 100,000 years. So we are 2,000 years into a long Michael's post-bestowal age. And that is described in a special section 6, Urantia's post-bestowal age. So those are some near-term, if you think in terms of thousands of years, things to look forward to. And in that same paper, then the next normal planet phase is the Trinity Teacher Sun age. And then comes light and life. So for us to look at destiny, we can really look at those three epochs, the post-bestowal age we're in right now, and some of the characteristics of that for this planet. Those are described in section 6 of paper 52. And then also, we can see ahead to Trinity Teacher Sons. And someone mentioned magisterial sons. Magisterial sons always accompany a Trinity Teacher Son. So we didn't have a magisterial son bestowal age. So there's some openness here, completely up to Michael, our planetary prince's discretion, as to how this will proceed. So, but we will definitely be seeing magisterial sons along with the Trinity Teacher Sons when that era comes. And then, of course, if you know, someone said this, I can't quote who it was, but if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? It's that road thing, like you've got to have a roadmap. But light and life is really our roadmap. A lot of questions came up. As you can imagine, I'm a woman. I like to bring this up about gender and women and men and any kind of gender issue that comes up with all of this. But you know that by the time we're in Light and Life, we're moving towards self-governance. We don't have it yet, but there's a lot of progression in governance yet to go in our current generations. And how would we wisely govern to lead towards self-government eras of Light and Life? And also this partnership of men and women that seems to be really coming around.
Or blurry.
Yes, the equality of men and women on a normal planet, most people guess it wrong. I won't do your test question as an educator. But if you pick one of the previous revelations, when is sex equality realized? That's the quote in the book. Is it, which epical revelation lays the foundation for the future of civilization by having partnership of men and women and gender issues resolved?
Isn't it?
Most people say Adam and Eve, it's the planetary prince. And so we are really behind, and that's why, again, the gender questions and female-male relationships and all of that come into play.
What is a female?
Yeah, so, yeah, what is all of this, after all, and what does it mean? So there's a lot that's going on in the immediate future, the mid-future, if you will, and the future destiny, which we know is glorious, and it is guaranteed. Light and Life is guaranteed. Whether it be on this planet or what condition this planet will be in is yet to be determined by our groups and future groups in the immediate future. But once a planetary culture has been set in motion, it is guaranteed to succeed. And that's the joy of this revelation. Lots of people don't have that reassurance right now. People are very worried about the future right now. It's the people I know that aren't Urantia book readers. So I'm very joyous about the future. When I do feel moved to tears, and I never know when it's going to happen, it's usually because it's something really moving or deep or beautiful. It's not tears of sorrow. It's just gratitude for this revelation.
Right.
Because I believe this is the hope for people now and the immediate future, the mid-future, and the future beyond.
Here, here.
And with that, I would like to introduce Ken.
Okay. I need, George, would you help me, please?
What?
George, would you help me?
Carrying the
I need to carry this to the other end of the table,
podium?
to the podium. And figure out where it's set it on the floor.
She's good too.
This part is unplanned.
Oh, also the room is a bit,
It's semi-planned.
So, thank you. Thank you, Sue.
Leaves room for spontaneous
Wanna make sure.
creativity.
Barbara,
All I need to do is.
Barbara, somebody's asking you.
Barbara.
oh, questions?
While he's getting set up, what you just said reminds me of what Jesus told the apostles. Don't let yourself become jeopardized by someone else's act. Make sure you stay faithful. Remember, that was one of his late teachings?
Yes.
And so that's one of the great things we need to come and make sure we're right in there with our own personal faith.
Exactly. And there's a tremendous future that we all have in the ascendant career. One of the main themes of the Urantia book is the ascendant career and what our individual futures will be. And that is also guaranteed as a matter of faith, totally our choice. And that's very reassuring to people who have been influenced by other perspectives and teachings of spirituality and religion, that we really, this material life is the beginning of eternal life. And it's so valuable being alive here on this planet, the value of human life, the value of the individual, and carrying that into the future is one of the individual elements of looking at the hope for the future. Thank you. I mainly mentioned the socialization effects that come with civilization and the epochs and the planetary light and life stages, but all of this is good for the individual. and we have a tremendous destiny once the age of the supreme is concluded and we're moving on into ultimacy. It's pretty easy to get excited about eternal life if you have all of that information. At least I think so.
Okay, Kim's ready.
All right. I must admit, I have a sentimental streak. Do you have a sentimental streak?
We go
It must be okay. It must be okay, because the authors tell us that because of Michael's bestowal on our world, Urantia is the sentimental shrine of all Nebadon. So if they can, the Celestials can have a sentimental shrine, great. Sentimentality must be okay. It goes on, chief of 10 million worlds, etc., etc. And Jesus promised to sometime return to the world of his terminal bestowal, the world of the cross. World of the cross, sentimental shrine of all Nebadon. Okay, we're here today to learn that sentimentality must be an acceptable attribute. My segment about this is about this building. This building, many of you know it familiarly as 533. 533. We have this monument of the Revelation. This is the first tome of the Urantia Revelation. On page, and that was page 1319 for those who wanted, and I could give the rest of the reference if you like. Okay, in the section of the Celestial Artisans, the Seraphim talking, I cannot with exclusive spirit vision perceive the building in which this narrative is being translated and recorded. A divine counselor from Uversa who chances to stand by my side perceives still less of these purely material creations.
I'm looking for the.
Yeah, by my side, no, they're referring to the Celestials that were here earlier. They left before lunch. We discern how these material structures appear to you by viewing a spirit counterpart presented to our minds by one of our attending energy transformers. This material building is not exactly real to me, a spirit being, but it is, of course, very real and very serviceable to material mortals. All right. So we are blessed with this great resource. Now, the third quote that I'm going to read is a little reminder in the section of paper 100 on concepts of supreme value. In your contemplation of values, you must distinguish between that which is value and that which has value. So we've got a valuable building here. Is it valuable of itself, or does it just have value? Well, we can all ponder that as we go forward here. All right. So, do you enjoy a good dilemma? This is the dilemma.
That's why we're
How
here.
do we respect the historic role of this building with our beloved Revelation, and at the same time not get undue attachment to it? How do we preserve it for the future of those who may enjoy some of those same sentimentalities as they learn about the delightful joys taught to us in the Urantia papers, and yet realizing that it is only a resource? I used to attend a church, and one of the benedictions of the church, of the pastor, was really, really cool. Enough that I memorized the benediction. He repeated it periodically. You have not been to church. You are the church. It was a great period of time in my life. The church is not this building. The church is what you do when you leave this building. Go in peace to love and serve our God. So, we can share these teachings with or without this building. Nonetheless, we have this building. And it has seen some interesting days, starting out as residences, doctor's offices, and at the same time, a family home. Some of the patients became forum members, and the forum activities happened here. It eventually became a publishing house, including the aspects of sales, shipping, and distribution. Over time, a hub of reader services and spiritual retreats and scientific symposiums, and now more and more a learning center while still being a publishing house. Learning center. The very first six summer study sessions from 1963 to 1972 were held in this room. Education going all the way back to 1963. Small conferences until the room was outgrown. Okay. Many persons who have heard about 533, this wonderful building, and have not had the experience of visiting here in person. It's a beautiful place. There's no denying it's a beautiful place. Today we're going to share a video that is available on Urantia Foundation website. We're going to take a virtual tour together. It's going to take a moment. That's why I brought it to this end of the room to click on this to get it started. Nonetheless, we're going to take about 10 minutes and enjoy this video. We're getting there, right after Alice.
There it is.
There it is.
The 2018 virtual tour, Foundation Music by Bob Stallone.
Hello, welcome to the Urantia Foundation. My name is Jennifer Siegel, and I'd like to give you a tour. Right this way. This is what we call the history room, and we call it that because when the renovations were being done on the building, I sent out a request for old photographs of the Sadlers and the history. And then if you come over here, you can see this drawing. This is the original drawing of the architectural plans of the exterior of 533 Diversey Street. It was quite a treasure when we found it. So now I thought I'd show you the offices. Come with me. This is an extra boardroom that we have. This is where trustees meet on occasion when we have a smaller group. It's really a beautiful room. One of the things I love about this building is the ceilings. Take a look. It's so pretty. Here's the employee break room, where the magic happens, or the microwaving and coffee. This is Mo's office.
You're all invited to come in and visit at 533 Diversey Parkway. It's a beautiful building that Dr. Sadler gave to Urantia Foundation. Urantia Foundation will most likely move toward an educational organization, an learning institution who spreads these most important teachings that will spiritually transform the world.
We have 3 more offices back here. One here, one here, and then the sunny office.
Yeah.
I'm Joanne Strobel, and my title is Executive Assistant. I've been here 6.5 years. We do have a reader services person. Bob Salone does a lot of work for us. If somebody leaves a voicemail message and they would like to call us back, those are the kinds of things we can give Bob. And Bob also gets inquiries that go to our website. Urantia@urantia.org is an email address, and Bob can respond to that on behalf of the foundation. I'm in charge of the building and grounds, so it has been thoroughly renovated. In fact, when I first came on board, it was in the midst of a total renovation. Every floor has been renovated, and most recently, even the basement.
Well, this is Gar Jameson. I'm a trustee here at Urantia Foundation, and I want to welcome you to the basement. And the story we tell down here is from stars to early civilization. And we have here a lot of what we call documents of life. I tell my students I like fossils. Why? Because I'm becoming one. So this shows, again, the various periods. So the early periods, and then the time we were in the ocean, and then the time we were above the ocean. But what's most important, and I want to draw your attention to, are the three pieces here. This piece on the left was found on Cyprus, which was the birthplace of the second epical revelation. And this piece here was found in Hebron, which was the birthplace of the third epical revelation. And this piece over on the right was found in Bethlehem. And what they all have in common, three concentric circles. They're Cypriotic pottery, and they come from about 800 to 1500 BCE. So they're old and they're authentic. We're spending a lot more time on education these days. We're obviously focused on the book and translations, but education is a big new frontier.
This is the beautiful front office that has a view of the street and a fireplace.
So I'm Tamara Strumfeld, and I'm the executive director here at Urantia Foundation. And my main job is to make sure that we succeed at the mission of getting the Urantia book and its teachings around the world. Here at the foundation, our #1 mission is making sure this book is available to anyone who's searching for it. For anyone who has questions about the book or trying to locate readers in their community or just how to get involved, please just contact us and we'll be happy to connect you with people in your area.
So that's our first floor office space, and let's go upstairs. Welcome to the second floor of the Urantia Foundation. This is really a beautiful room, and one of the things that I love about this room is that we've been able to keep the original wallpaper. It's a little dark, not quite what people might choose these days, but it's so beautiful. If you look at the wood grain on these doors, you can really get a sense of the age of the building. It's such a special place. So we will oftentimes sit in here, and dinner is served buffet style right here, and everyone will have dinner. It's just a good gathering place that isn't a boardroom. Let's go on to the kitchen. It might look small, but it's much improved over what it was. When I first arrived here at the Urantia Foundation, this kitchen was a galley kitchen, closed off here, and all the cabinets were from, I would say, the 50s. They were metal, and cooking was rough. So the renovation to this room is a very exciting thing for me. I love to cook. I love to cook for the board, and this is where I get to do it. Come on, let's go over to the coffee bar. Another great gathering place. This is where everyone has their breakfast. Welcome to the maids' quarters. This is the first bedroom that we renovated, and it has kind of a special story. There was a door over here that led into the kitchen so that the maid just had access to the kitchen. Once we sealed that up, I could get an additional oven in the kitchen. So we moved the door to the hallway. And when we did that, we took down some bookshelves that were here. What was under the bookshelves was a closet that no one knew existed. But we didn't find anything of value in the closet. The other thing that we found in this room is once we took up the linoleum floor, which was in bad shape, we found this beautiful bird's eye maple floor. What a treat. One of the things that we did at the Urantia Foundation was renovate all of the bathrooms. It was a big job. In fact, at one point when the contractor was removing some of the plumbing, he grabbed a pipe in his hand and it just disintegrated. I feel like we really dodged a disaster by getting in there before the big leak. I found these light fixtures online and I thought, 3 circles. I wonder what could be done with those. So I turn them like that and they look like they were made for us. It's fun to see who actually notices that when they come to the building. Welcome to the Forum Room. One of the best new additions we've made is this Zoom screen. So now you can join the meetings from anywhere in the world and be bigger than life. Welcome to the 3rd floor residence. We're very excited to be here this morning because the Urantia Foundation actually rents this space. And the folks that live here currently were gracious enough to let us in. So the Sadlers purchased this in May of 1922, and this top floor was where they had their family time. Come take a look. And now my favorite room, of course, the beautiful kitchen. I've never been able to cook in this one. I have to cook downstairs. There were lots of opinions about how this building should be renovated, what should and shouldn't be done. But at the end of the day, everyone agreed we must do the best job possible for this special and important place here in Chicago.
Nice job, Bob.
Yeah, Bob?
As was pointed out, over the last 15 years, many renovations have taken place, improvements, modernization in parts of every floor. There's no denying that this building has a rich history and is currently very serviceable to us. We're called to be good stewards. We have that very important responsibility. And now, with that, moving us towards the future, I'm going to introduce Tom Sadler, sometimes known as Dr. Tom Sadler, who will share with us a few more thoughts about the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I'll sit right here. I want to open it up quickly to Tamara, who has a couple things to share with us.
So I'm just speaking about Ken, who so beautifully brought up the building and this sentimental shrine of the fifth ethical revelation. You know, this building's 115 years old and it has issues. There's also a coach house right next door. And Ken is the good steward of this building, of which I don't know what I'd do without you. And for example, it was Christmas morning. It was 10 after 7. I woke up, the house was silent, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna have some luxury morning time. I'm just gonna lay in bed, read the news. I grabbed my phone, 8 missed calls from the tenant. Oh. There was a pipe that burst. Water is gushing through his kitchen apartment into the living room, pouring down into the garage. I don't know where the water valve is to shut it off. Ken, we couldn't get a hold of you yet. I was calling plumbers, calling people I knew. Finally, you know, Ken apparently was playing Words with Friends in the other room without his phone. He realized it's 15 minutes, the world fell apart. He comes to the rescue.
tells us where the shut-off valve is, came down. I'd been getting dressed to come down, and my husband's like, it's Christmas morning. You don't know how to fix pipes. And I'm like, but I have to do something, and I don't know where Ken is. Well, Ken, he gets on the, no, we got you an Uber down. He cleaned it up. He opened up the walls and the ceiling so that mold wouldn't get in, and totally got it good for the tenant to be in. And this is just one example of this good steward of this building. I don't know what we'd do without you. And you I wanted you all to know he's the hero.
Thank you. And we did this virtual tour for those on the Zoom because, as you know, when the program ends, we're going to do an in-person tour of the building and see some of those same things for those that were able to be here in person. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
I want to thank, in particular, two people, Barbara and Ken, for helping to organize this session. We had some conversations and we had some emails going back and forth. And so I just want to say that it's been a pleasure working with both of you. Thank you. I want to talk about this Urantia Foundation and this experience that we're all sharing from a little different perspective, my perspective. And I want to talk a little bit about some stories. I want to tell some stories that are coming to my mind this morning and sitting here. And then I want to talk a little bit about this idea of destiny, which Barbara and Ken wanted to focus on, and thinking a little bit about the future as well. And I want to read 2 or 3 paragraphs here that are 2 or 3 of my favorite paragraphs. And maybe we can go through that a little bit and talk about the context of destiny and forward thinking. And then I just want to finish by talking a little bit about the future and the fact that we're here on a very momentous day. And I don't think we should lose sight of that this is a real celebration and a real unique experience that we're all here together on the 100th anniversary of the start of the forum. I mean, I think that's a very incredible situation. And I know I'm very glad that I'm here. But I want to think a little bit about what it might be 100 years from now in year 200. And so we'll finish a little bit with some of that speculation. But let me start with some stories. So I was born in 1969, so I'm 53 years old now. So I'm 4th generation in the context of readership and having this experience. And so I started coming here very, very early on, before I can remember. And the reason is that my father grew up here on this floor. And so we're in the forum room right now, and he grew up on the other side of this 2nd floor in the bedroom. And so he used to tell a story about when he was growing up, he would lie on his bed and he would have a tennis ball and throw it up against the wall and bounce it right back to himself and catch it. And he talked about story after story about growing up with his sister and his older brother. And so for him, he grew up, he was the youngest of the 3 kids. These were the children of Bill Sadler Jr. and Leon, who are my grandparents. And for him, this was his house. This was his residence. And so his experience growing up in his early years and then being a teenager, he got up, he'd go to school, he'd have friends, just like anyone would. And he would come back, and every evening there would be dinner and conversation. There would be a lot of conversation. Now, he grew up with the fact that a lot of the conversation was revolved around the Urantia book, even into the 1950s. So he grew up in the 40s and then in the 1950s. So we would say that was a pretty unusual and unique situation, but not for him, because that was his life. Whatever we grow up with, we often assume that that's the normal existing order of things, and that's the way it was for him. So then in my generation, when I started coming here with my father and my mother as well, and my older sister, this was in the 1970s, I remember running up and down this hallway right here. And if you go down to the end of the hallway towards the bathroom, there's some drawers that you can pull out right in this hallway. And so I'd go down there, I was probably 6 or 7 years old right at the end, and one of the bottom drawers I'd pull it out and there was a little train set in there.
Oh.
There was a little train set, which was fantastic. So I'd pull that train set out and set it up right in the hallway down there. So all the adults had to step around that and walk around that, which I got great pleasure in doing. And so that was when I was young. And so as the years went by, I started to appreciate even more, as we do, the relatives that we still have. And so I met Christy. Christy was around and she was up on the 3rd floor. So I would go up with my mother and my father up to visit Christy. Now, in actuality, she was not a blood relative to the Sadler family, but she was called Aunt Christy because she was around forever. My father called her Aunt Christy. For me, she was Great Aunt Christy. But for my father, she was always around and she was always up on the 3rd floor. And my father and Christy were great friends. And my father and what everybody, I just get a kick out of, everybody calls my great-grandfather Dr. Sadler. You know, he's my great-grandfather to me. That's who he was. But my father and his grandfather, my great-grandfather, William Samuel Sadler, they were great friends as well. And so there were a lot of wonderful family memories in this building. And so into the 70s and then into the 80s, when I started growing up a little bit more, Helen was still here. It was my Aunt Helen. And so we would visit her as well. And then fast forward, I went to college, went to graduate school, lived on the East Coast in New York City for a long period of time for work. And then when we finally moved back to the Midwest, we moved back to Illinois, talking to my Aunt Patty, Patricia Mendelius, she said, you've got to go back and you've got to meet this person who's working there now at the Urantia Foundation. Her name's Tamara. And I said, okay, we will go back. I said, I haven't met Tamara yet. So this was about 12 years ago or so. And so we came back here, my wife and I, and we have 2 children now. And we showed up one day, and I don't think we called ahead of time because that's not what you do when you're going home, right? You show up. And so we rang the buzzer and Tamara was there and she said, hello. And I said, it's Tom Sadler. And she buzzed me right in. And so we came in and met and had a really great conversation. I remember that day. And so we've been coming back for about the last decade or so and have been spending a lot of time here talking to Tamara, talking to Ken, talking to Barbara, and getting to know a lot of the people who are involved with the Urantia movement now. And so, you know, people ask me, are you a reader? Are you interested? You know, very, very valid questions given the family that I grew up in. And yes, yeah, I am a reader and I am very interested. And I think right now being here at a gathering like this, I'm here for 2 reasons, really. One, because Barbara invited me to be a part of this. And so I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to come here and see Barbara and Ken and Tamara and Cece and Bob and everybody else that I've met here. But I do feel somewhat of a responsibility as well, because you know my great-grandfather and grandfather and father are not here. I think they'd love to be here with us if they had the opportunity to do that.
Spirit, probably.
In spirit, yeah, but I can be here. And so I'm very, very glad I am. One more final story then, and I want to move on to this reading. And Ken knows this story very well because he played a very important part of this. When my son, who is now 16, his name is Matthew, when he was about 3 or 4 years old, yeah, we were here, and Jennifer Siegel was talking about in that video the renovations that were going on this floor. And so one of the renovations, well, there are many renovations, but one of the renovations had to do with the bedroom, the first bedroom that's past the kitchen. If you're going towards the bathroom, it's the right-hand side. And how there was a closet, kind of a hidden closet, because there was a bookcase. There used to be a big bookcase there filled with books. And so my father, when I was growing up, told me, he said, you know what, there's a secret passageway here on the 2nd floor. There's a secret passageway. So I grew up thinking, looking for it. Where is this secret passageway? Where is it? I think he just kind of planted that seed in my mind for the fun of it. And so fast forward all these years later and decades later, we were here in some of those early years after we met Tamara and Ken, and this remodeling was going on here, and the bookcase was removed. And so it was revealed that there was a closet between the next bedroom and this room, so you could pass through. And so this was the secret passageway. So that question was finally answered in my mind. And there's one other thing, Jennifer Siegel alluded to it in the.
And that was one of his revelatory questions.
Yes, yeah. Where is the secret passageway? Where is it? So that question was answered. But before the remodeling was done on this floor, you could start in the kitchen and go room to room through back doors and closets and so forth, all the way around to this other side, to the first bedroom on the left. Now you can't do that because bathrooms have been put in and some of the bedrooms have been closed off. It was actually Ken's idea. I was there, it was a really good idea. Ken said to my son Matthew, who's 3 or 4 years old, because the secret passageway was about to be built over. It wasn't going to be a secret passage anymore. It was revealed to us very, very briefly. Ken had the idea with my son. He said, since this is about to be plugged up, why don't you run through the whole passageway one last time? Because kids for many, including me when I was young, kids for many generations love to do that. That was just really fun. So my son knew what to do because we had spent a lot of time here, even when he was a little guy. And so Ken said, why don't you do that one last time? And so he did it. So he was the last one to make it through from one side to the other. And that's just one of many, many stories I think that connects, more present years to way back when. But I think finally, before I move on and take a look at this passage, that I just get a kick out of the fact that, this building that I grew up appreciating and enjoying so much, because my father grew up here and this was the home of my family, that everybody enjoys coming here as well. And so I really appreciate that. So I want to thank all of you for being here as well and taking care of the building and appreciating the building and keeping it now in the extended family, which is what we all are now. We're all a big family. So those are the stories that I want to tell in terms of context. The reading I want to take a look at that I think goes along with this session really well. This is paper 110. And this is on, actually I want to start reading on 1205, but it's paper 110. And this is one of the thought adjuster papers. It's the relation of adjusters to individual mortals. Let's see, section 3. Yeah, it's called, on page 1205 in paper 110, it's section 3 and it's called Cooperation with the Adjuster. Cooperation with the Adjuster. And so let me read a little bit here. I want to lead up to a sentence that's not only about destiny, but it's about joy as well. And that's what I wanted to bring into this gathering that we're having today. So again, paper 110, section 3, page 1205, Cooperation with the Adjuster. It says, adjusters are playing the sacred and superb game of the ages. They are engaged in one of the supreme adventures of time and space. And how happy they are when your cooperation permits them to lend assistance in your short struggles of time as they continue to prosecute their larger tasks of eternity. But usually, when your adjuster attempts to communicate with you, the message is lost in the material currents of the energy streams of human mind. Only occasionally do you catch an echo, a faint and distant echo of the divine voice. I remember when I read that sentence the first time at some point in the past, I was thinking, can't we listen better? What can we do if that's the reality and they're there for us? What can we do? What can we do to reach out and hear more of those messages? Reading on, the success of your adjuster in the enterprise of piloting you through the mortal life and bringing about your survival depends not so much on the theories of your beliefs as upon your decisions, determinations, and steadfast faith, which is in italics. All these movements of personality growth become powerful influences, aiding you in your advancement because they help you to cooperate with the adjuster. They assist you in ceasing to resist. Thought adjusters succeed or apparently fail in their terrestrial understandings, just insofar as mortals succeed or fail to cooperate with the scheme whereby they are to be advanced along the ascending path of perfection attainment. The secret of survival is wrapped up in the supreme human desire to be godlike, and in the associated willingness to do and be any and all things which are essential to the final attainment of that overmastering desire. When we speak of an adjuster's success or failure, we're speaking in terms of human survival. Adjusters never fail. They are of the divine essence, and they always emerge triumphant in each of their undertakings. And I'm about there in the next paragraph. I cannot but observe that so many of you spend so much time and thought on mere trifles of living, while you almost wholly overlook the more essential realities of everlasting import, those very accomplishments which are concerned with the development of a more harmonious working agreement between you and your adjuster. The great goal of human existence is to attune to the divinity of the indwelling adjuster. The great achievement of mortal life is the attainment of a true and understanding consecration to the eternal aims of the divine spirit who waits and works within your mind. And here's the sentence. But a devoted and determined effort to realize eternal destiny is wholly compatible with the lighthearted and joyous life and with a successful and honorable career on earth. And I want to pause right there. What I think is so outstanding about this is, just like with so many passages in this book, this is a powerful and revealing passage and set of paragraphs. I think very important as well, extremely important, just to try and understand, try and pay attention to what is being said here. But then it says a devoted and determined effort to realize eternal destiny is wholly compatible with a lighthearted and joyous life. I really like that as well. And I think one of the conversations that Ken and Barbara and I had thinking about this session and really thinking about this entire day of the 100-year anniversary is that this should be a joyous celebration for us as well. That I think this has always been a part of this group through the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, which is a function of all our lives and all of our existences and the existing order of things. That's the way life is. It's a challenge, it's hard, it's work, it's a struggle to move forward, but hopefully there's some lighthearted joy in our lives as well along the way. And just in the context of my observations and my experiences, that's definitely been the case today. Interacting and talking with the people that I've already known and interacting and talking with the people that I met last night and here today. So I think it's a great lesson to focus on, that there is a lot of work to do in thinking about how we move this movement forward, but let's enjoy ourselves along the way. And especially let's enjoy ourselves when we're together in a situation like this. It's a really unique opportunity. And so I'm just glad that I've had a chance to participate in these sessions and meetings and conversations. One final thing then, some observations that I've been making largely with our conversations last night and then what we've talked about so far today, that with this being the 100th anniversary and the fact that this is a framework that's a much longer framework, we hear or read the 1,000-year framework. So we're about 10% or so of the way into this period of time. That's not that much. That's not that much. So talking about my experience, I said this is, I'm representing the 4th generation in my family, but 1,000 years, that could be about 50 generations or so, a 50 generation period of time. So what I think is that these are still the early days and the early years. And I think the role that we have in this movement and in this world that we've inherited and that hopefully we can move forward in a positive way is to continue these conversations and to continue to interact and continue to tell our stories, both personal and what we read in the book. And I think that's very important, to think about the next generation and the generation after that, because they're coming. And hopefully they will be sitting here 100 years from now in a gathering just like this, thinking about what questions they would want to ask as well. And hopefully, knowing Ken and Barbara and Cece, hopefully there will be a very great record of our gatherings today. And then a couple more things. I asked Tamara just a few moments ago, exactly how well have we done, not just in the last 100 years, but really since 1955, in terms of the printing of the book. Tamara says, as of the figures last night, that there have been, in terms of the Urantia book in all translations, since 1955, there have been 839,936 books that have been put into the population of the world. So we're not that far from 1 million. But what that means is that there are millions of people who have been exposed to the Urantia book at this point in time. And the 26 translations that we've heard that currently exist, and there are many more to come. So if we were to reflect now, and we could talk to my great-grandfather or great-grandmother, who I think would have been thrilled to be a part of an experience like this today, or all the people that were a part of that first generation, especially, I think they would take a look at this and they would say, in this world of globalization and global networks and the connections that we have, I think we've done pretty well so far. I think we've done pretty well over the course of the first 100 years. And going back to one of the questions that I think a number of people brought up earlier, why wasn't there as much success early on in the early days, 1955, 1960, 1956, when the book first came out, that the people in the Urantia movement were thrilled about it, that the book finally came out in print, but the dissemination was slow. It was very slow. And so for that first group of people, that was frustrating. But I think, how could it be otherwise? If we're in a 1,000-year period of time, this is a process. It was a process in terms of what Barbara's described in bringing this book into the world. It was a multi-decade process. But in terms of moving it forward to the next level, it's a multi-century process, to get this book into the world. And so I think it's hard for us to remain patient with these processes because we're not here that long in terms of our individual lives. It's just not that long in this period of time. But I think if we take a longer term perspective and think about the fact that there will be many generations that follow us, just like there were a few generations that came before us, I think that's a really useful and helpful framework to have in mind. Finally, then, in conclusion, I want to go back to that one word. What does this require? I think it requires steadfast faith. I think it requires steadfast faith. Do we know that we're doing the right thing? We're asking the right questions? I like to think so, but it's hard to really know that for sure. I think everybody in here is genuinely doing the best that they possibly can, given the resources and knowledge and histories and constraints that we have. I really think that that's the case. But I think this idea of steadfast faith is very, very useful and very, very helpful in that I'm confident that not only will we make it to the next generation or the next couple generations of people to read this book and come here and enjoy this forum room and enjoy this building, but I think we'll make it to 50 generations as well. I think this book will be here for a long time. And just like Barbara said before, that I'd like to repeat, we have a guaranteed future of light and life. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. And what else now do we want to discuss or have questions? We left time just to be sure we could cover everybody's desires to share. among family. Yes, Rick.
Marvin Garvin's got his hand up. Marvin, you want to go?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if Tom had any thoughts that he wanted to share. I noticed what you described. You didn't mention the internet and the fact that the book has such a broad presence in the virtual space. And I remember hearing an estimate that there's some 600 related websites to when you look for the word Urantia and Urantia book. Some of them pretty peripheral and, sort of out of the way conceptually, but some of them, many of them very heart and center focused on the revelation. Just wondered if you have any additional thoughts for the future and destiny, given the online presence of the text as well.
I think it's a great question. And actually, it's a question that came up in our breakout session as well. We were thinking, Jesse was talking about a little bit, thinking about the role of technology that exists in the world today. And I think it's a real fascinating question as well. In terms of my academic side, my area is economics, but I spend a lot of time teaching and writing about and reading about this world of globalization that we live in, but more specifically, the networks of globalization that the world has established over the course of the last several decades. We're familiar with social networks now that have emerged, say, in the last 2 decades, but we've got a global network of information, a global network of technology, in addition to a global network of trade and production and resource inputs that takes place. But I think moving forward, I think this idea of establishing a global network is important, not just for the dissemination of this book, and that is clearly the future in terms of how this book will be disseminated in ebook form, using the technology that will continue to advance over time. But I think also in the context of the interaction that takes place, that, literally for the first time, humans have the possibility of communicating with each other on a global scale. That's new. That's a really new reality that we've encountered in our lifetimes here. So it's a monumental change in terms of the structure of the world and what we can do in terms of interaction and connection. And so that's only going to grow over time. The world's becoming a smaller and smaller place because interconnection is growing over time. So I like to think that a lot of those same principles and realities hold true with the Urantia book as well. And so I think we've gotten to the point with the 26 translations and almost 1 million copies of the book that have been disseminated. I think this is the tip of the iceberg, in that I think at some point, I don't know when, but I think at some point fairly soon, there will be a tipping point where the growth of this book and the dissemination of these ideas have been progressing. If you look back to 1955 and look at the yearly book sales or book distribution numbers, it's been progressing at a fairly steady rate. Sometimes one year it's a little more, another year it's a little bit less, but it's been fairly steady since 1955. But I think the tipping point soon is going to be, it's going to start growing much more exponentially. And that's because of global networks of information and technology and so forth. I don't think we're quite here yet, but I think we can envision that world that will exist over time. And somebody also mentioned AI earlier. It's really hard to envision right now what that's going to look like even 10 years from now, let alone 100 years from now. I don't think it's possible for us to envision what role AI will play in our lives, but clearly there will be a role, and I think there will be an important role. And again, I think that's going to be all wound up with the Urantia book and the teachings of the Urantia book. We could probably have another session to speculate on a lot of these things, but I think they're really interesting. So I appreciate the question, and I think it's worthwhile reflecting on.
Rick. Marion Hughes has got a question. Go ahead,
Speaking of AI, do you think that will be used for translations?
Speaking of what?
AI.
Artificial.
AI. Will AI be used for near instantaneous translations?
Yes.
It already does.
Yes.
So instead of just the 30 major languages of the world that they were instructed to translate the book into, it could be in every language.
Yes, in theory, absolutely.
No reason not to.
I thought. Thank you.
I have some thoughts to share, Tom.
Sure.
All these evolution of technology is wonderful and going to be very, very useful. But I think the real transformations inside of heart and soul come with friendship. Because people will naturally, from a human way, well, what's in it for me? This is all fancy stuff. But until it touches them inside their soul, they're not going to want to reach out. And one of Jesus' great techniques was friendship attraction. And I think this book is a guide for how to help us become better friends so that we smile more and feel the joy, because it really is inside the souls where the changes really happen. Just use all the technology, but it's the changes inside we're really reaching for. I'm done.
Thank you.
Regarding the figure, which is accurate from Tamra, but if you add in internet downloads, you are over the million figure.
Yeah.
And on that point, I would just say sort of it's kind of off the point, but a line. In magazine publishing, we say a magazine passes around 3 to 5 times. So I'm not sure what in book publishing we say, but you know, just think of it, if one book is passed around 3 or 5 times.
Multiplier effect.
Well, thousands of these books are in libraries,
Yeah.
so that's, hopefully it's getting checked out. Ken, are you raising your hand?
Yeah. In a different kind of comparison, a book this size, usually published in a university or something, if they do 2,000 copies of the publication, that's considered, they made it big. We've got, like you said, 800,000 out there.
And the average,
we're moving along, and the Urantia Foundation and all the efforts are, going to pay off.
the average self-published book now sells less than 250 copies.
Could that be repeated?
The average self-published book now sells less than 250 copies. 2 million people self-publish a year. Just commenting.
Tom, I got another question I'd like to ask, and that involves the word teamwork. One of the most important lessons of your mortal career, remember that, is teamwork. And Jesus put together a team of apostles. And to me, the Trinity is the ultimate model of teamwork. And I think we're going to be a whole lot more successful in the Urantia movement if we demonstrate divine quality teamwork. How do we get there? I'd like to know.
I have a related question to Mark's question, which is about globalization and teamwork, because I think he's right. I think we are on the verge of a tipping point, and we have just so much more time to get our house in order to be ready for a bigger world stage. But we also have, these, as the translations are becoming additive and the distribution's becoming additive, and the internet, even in countries with fewer resources, is becoming more available. And literacy is increasing dramatically because people want access to the internet. We have communities and interest popping up all over the globe. And so I wonder, when you're talking about this global network, how should we go about being part of a global network to encourage the organic growth that's happening and support it without trying to dominate it or become like, there was a quote from Henry Begeman in that early video. He did the Dutch translation, about not becoming imperialists. You know, it's almost like having, I'm just not, I wonder what you all think about our global network and what it should be. I don't know that what it is now is what it should be, but I think teamwork and friendship is at the heart and soul of it. And I don't think it's imperialism. And I don't think it's territorial. I mean, we don't own this revelation, they do. So I wonder, you know, what we could be doing now to enhance our global network and create something that's accessible and friendly and team spirited and not hostile.
Who is it that was just speaking? Well, we can't see.
It's Sue.
Oh, Sue.
It's Sue speaking. Hi, Marvin.
Oh, hi, hi, Sue.
Hi. So I'm just throwing that question out there. I'd love for somebody to jump in. I think this is a challenge facing all of us.
Sue, what you're mentioning, the warning in the book about the world will hardly capitulate to a segregated Christianity without the unity, that emerges for me as a pretty sizable warning for this whole movement.
I agree. Anybody who listens to me knows that I'm on the unity bandwagon all the time.
I can see the importance, as everybody's talking about, how to spread the book and distribute it more all over. And also, most important, or just as important, is the ultimate message of the book, which is spreading kindness, spreading love. You know, love it even mentions in the book. I don't know the book like you guys do, but God is love. You spread kindness and love, it brings everything together. So. The whole point being is, to me, it's not all about the book. It's about what the book wants to portray to us as humans. How we following the life of Jesus or whatever it does to the message.
I'll chime in on Sue's question, and I really like it. I wrote it down for future discussions that we can all have in our respective communities. We have a lot of communities represented here today. And this question that Mark started about teamwork, and Sue is saying, really making the most of our global network right now. What do we have and how can we enhance it? What I'm thinking is, what works is you get together for service. I mean, you're friends and you enjoy your friendships, but love and service was Jesus' main fourth epical revelation message that we're still spreading after only 2,000 years. And when good friends, like we've always had in Chicago, I've been here a long time through thick and thin. And I love Chicago because we kept it together. And this friendship group is what makes service possible. We really truly get to know one another, we love one another, and we do it. Whatever service is needed, from fixing the plumbing here to whatever else is going on, we just do it out of that love of each other and the love of being of service. And I just don't think we can go wrong when there's a service need in our global network. Let's work together to understand it. Let's see what we could offer as Urantia communities, meaning the earth, Urantia, and also the Urantia Revelation communities. We're all Urantians. That's the way the book uses the term Urantian. Every single person alive on this planet is a Urantian. And our community is joining in friendship and service for any need that we see. And we can learn from each other's experiences. We can find each other through the internet now so easily, I think. That's what I want to offer, is just work together on any little or big service that comes your way and get to know one another, and you'll fall in love.
Amen.
We got Marion Hughes has a question. Go ahead, Marion.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for that. And we were told teamwork is the watchword of the universe. And my Zoom group right now, we're involved with some students in Africa, and they're trying to Zoom on a phone. And if there's a lot of interest in the Urantia book in Africa right now by very young people. And if we could get them some, even used computers so that they could Zoom, because that's what they want. They need communication. They want communication. And I think there's that opportunity. If anybody wants to talk to me about that, feel free to contact me. We're getting involved in that, doing that. So there's so many service opportunities everywhere on this planet.
Thank you, Marion.
Marvin, you're up next.
Yeah, I'll just keep it brief because I know others haven't had a chance to speak, and I have. I just wanted to throw in an emphasis on leadership, high quality leadership. The Urantia book says that really high quality leadership is not in great quantities. It's not available in great quantities. And I think you can have teamwork, you can have friendship, you have all the focus on service work, all those deeper spiritual qualities that you were focusing us on, Tom, I think are very valid. But I think when that proverbial tipping point occurs, there's going to be a huge need for people who are spirit-led and who are capable of voicing leadership values and articulating them to come forward and organize the efforts of people who want to serve and cooperate. And I don't think that's a plentiful commodity. So I think any folks who have those capabilities should be very prayerfully looking to source them and be ready to step up as needed.
Or step down.
He's right about that.
Or step down as soon as.
Or step down as needed.
But one thing too is multi-generational, and the Urantia movement, to match the movements in the world and various professions and in civilization, it seems that we're doing better with multi-generational, but having events where families can come with all the kids, and that's the kind of thing that I think internally will help develop leadership for the future, and also just match the types of developments we see in other faith groups with multicultural, multi-generational networking now. It's possible. And I do see a tremendous amount of that happening in the younger generations of the Urantia movement. So let's make the most of that, the multi-generational possibilities.
Yes.
Well, you have to raise your hand.
Okay. Wait.
Doug, did you have a question? Doug Cable.
Oh,
yes. Actually, it was me, and I'm sorry to say I forgot my question. This has just been a wonderful day. We've been here all day, and my times at the foundation are just so precious to me. And Barbara, I think you may remember working with me at some point there when Tonya was there and back in the day. And I'm just so glad that you guys have put this together and that we are in a place now where we can Zoom and we can all see the foundation and interact with you guys and people from all over the planet. It's just a beautiful thing. And I really appreciate all that you've done so much. We all do appreciate it. Not about me. Yeah, we love you guys. Thank you.
We love you too.
We love you too. And I am so grateful for the people that joined us on Zoom today. It was so supportive for our group to see how many would join for a whole day. My goodness.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Yep. Let me fix my hair here.
Comment.
Oh, comments. Yeah, we've got time. Go ahead.
I think about this exponential timing of these things. It's like from Dalmatia, 300,000 years to Adam and Eve, 35,000 years to Melchizedek. 100 years he was there. Jesus, 33 years he's there. It seems to me that it sort of almost indicates the next big thing is going to be an event, not necessarily cataclysmic, but I think about 83, 85, I forget which year, I was in Portugal when We Are the World came out. You remember that song that just swept the planet? And there were kids on public transportation and in town squares phonetically singing this song. They didn't speak English that well, but they were singing this song. And I think it sort of indicates something like that might, I don't know, maybe the second coming will be an event. But to me, I think it's going to be an event because just the timing and spacing of these things, just, you probably draw a graph and pinpoint the year or the decade at least.
You've given me an idea. I like to think about joyful events. What could be a joyful event? And more joyful events for this planet, because so much of our news is hard for us to even stomach and listen to and hear. Because we have the communication now, we have all of that. But just these joyful events, like the one you mentioned, and the people singing and the music all over the world. Let's just go for joyful events to keep our balance and keep leading us into better ways and better civilization.
Susan Lyons up next on the Zoom.
Susan.
Go ahead, Susan.
Hi there. I've got a picture up and I wanted to just show everyone a little glimpse of the room back 30 years ago. And for Tom.
Can you make that the whole picture on the Zoom?
Oh, boy.
Never mind, it's okay.
Oh, you have to do it on there, I think. No, go ahead. I'm a private.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I wanted Tom to be able to see too, that Patty and Helen are both in the picture as well.
There it is.
There it is.
30 years ago, and another joyous gathering right there in that room. And you can see how the room is so much more beautiful now, and the remodeling is great. 30 years from now, I've taken snapshots of you all. So hopefully 30 years from now, we'll be showing those to the next a little anniversary. Anyway, I just wanted to show it.
What's that year again?
Helen Carlson.
Yeah, and there's Pat too, the one sitting right now. The glasses in the front. What year is that?
In 1994 in the spring and March. And Mark actually took this picture. Mark Hertz.
No, can't be. I'm in the picture.
Camera, Mark, remember? And then came over and sat down next to me. And Bob's standing in the back too. Bob Sloan. Anyway,
Any other names that people can call out?
Yeah,
Richard Keeler.
Richard Keeler, there's George DuPont's in there, and I think Phil Rolnick.
Is that a young Chris Wood?
Oh, Eddie King.
And,
Which one is Stallone?
Amy and Bob.
In the white?
No, in the plan.
In the flat next to the white.
Bob, you don't look yourself.
Who's to the right of him?
To the right of Stallone?
Yeah,
That's Bob. Is that Chris next to Richard?
Okay. Right?
to his right.
His right, yeah, shorter person.
Don't know.
No, that's Joan Bondi. That's
Joan Bondi.
And Damien is back behind, is Jerry Strock next to her, and Damien Bondi to the right of him. And then Kevin Schrock is to the right of him. And then if you go back over to the left side, that fellow behind Bob on the right, Bob, do you know who that is?
Bob's not in the room
Bob
right
left
now.
a few minutes ago. The room, anyway.
I'm not sure who that was, but Eddie King was to the left of Bob. And then in the back row, that's Mike Mason to the left. And then, of course, Richard Keeler, George. And I think that's Phil Rolnick there.
The man in front looks eerily like a brother of mine, the man with the long hair and mustache. And I know it's not my brother.
Mike Curry.
Thank you.
Mike Faree, and then Mark and me. And then that was Louis Boggs. And he had come up with me to that event. He had been at the foundation in the 20s, and his wife didn't approve, and so they moved away. But that was the first time he had been able to return to the foundation, and he had sort of a real tearful reunion with Helen, and they sat and talked quite a while. I just wanted you to see that how the room's changed and you see your relatives there.
Who's the one sitting next to Mark?
Pardon me?
Who's the one sitting to Mark's right?
That's to Mark's right.
Yeah. Susan.
Oh. Back in the day. Anyway.
Pat Mendelius is in there, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah.
This is Pat Mandela too, right?
Yeah.
That's your
That's Richard
aunt.
Keeler, and that's Eddie King.
Father, sister.
Yeah.
Susan, kindly put as many names on the back of the photo as you can. All right. Anybody, further comment, or I'll remove the pin.
Thank you, Susan. Great picture.
Well, Tom, I have a lot of worries sometimes and anxiety sometimes a little bit about the future and what I can do to help. I just don't have it all figured out about what I can do to help it move smoothly. Someday I'm gonna give up my Urantia breath, and what can I look back and say, yeah, I did a couple of things right. So what can I do from now on? I'm 80 years old, so I'm kind of up there.
I think you're doing a lot right. You're here. And you've been involved for a long time. It's
I
very
wanna do
clear.
more, though. So I'm kind of wondering from your generation, what counsel I can get from y'all.
I think the counsel would be to, if you can, pass it on to somebody in a younger generation.
Teach.
Yes. Serve as a teacher. Yeah, pass it on.
You know, we have a conference coming up. We need workshop leaders.
I'm gonna be there at IC 23 with them.
Yeah, but you are? You're bringing one?
I think so.
Okay, good.
Well, since the conference was brought up and joyful events, I'd like all of you to know that we're having a costume contest with fabulous prizes. And the idea is to come dressed as a character from the Urantia book.
Oh, wow.
So I invite you all to just imagine being in a room full of fellow Urantia beings.
Divine counselors.
Any number of who knows who will show up, and I just think it will be really a lot of fun. So you all have I've given you ample time to come up with what you're planning to wear.
Where's that gonna be?
It's going to be here at Oak Brook, here in Chicago.
I see.
The international conference in July.
Okay.
So I expect all of you to be there and be unrecognizable, because part of the contest will be a guessing game. So I hope you all fall into the spirit of it, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
But to amplify Mark's question, there's a lot of great teachers on this Zoom call. I don't know everybody, but I know a lot of you are brilliant students of this book and have shared insights I would never have known or had, have written things that could easily be turned into a workshop or a mentor meeting with a young person. So I would encourage everybody to find some way to pass it on.
Also, bring your children and grandchildren. They're free. The conference is free for them, and there'll be a fabulous children's program.
They're going to be completely subsidized. Children will be subsidized. Scholarship there.
Well.
For the children, yes.
Good.
So since Larry Bowman's second generation, I guess that qualifies?
He's a kid.
Kid at heart. Oh, Ken, you go overboard sometimes.
Any thoughts on this global network puzzle? Since you were talking about that at the end of your comments, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
That's all right. You mean how it'll proceed? What it'll look like?
Just from a just from your perspective, you know, do you see an opportunity that we're not capitalizing on?
Could you say that louder?
I asked him just to close out on that global network comment, because as he finished his remarks, we were talking about that. And I'm just wondering if he has any observations on things that where we're underserving.
Yes, I think where, I guess you're referring to the collective we.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a global network that we could focus on, this network of interconnection where information, conversation, technology can be shared. But I think there's a big difference between, you know, I would put everybody in this room in the same category in terms of how we access that information or use that information or disseminate that information and use that global network. And then younger people, you know, I'm thinking college age people, because those are the people that I interact with the most. The 18 to 22-year-old mind is a lot different now. Because they've grown up with it. We haven't. We have not grown up with this. They have. They're children of the 21st century, so they've never lived a life without cell phones and internet and
Digital
global
natives.
networks. Yes, this is the digital era for them. And so their attention spans are different, their brains are different, how they think about the world is different, how they access information is different, how they learn is different than probably everybody in this room has learned. And so I think the question is, how do you appeal for that? How do you appeal to that mind or that brain that's evolving and changing so fast? Because technology is evolving and changing so fast. This is the TikTok generation. And if you haven't gone or gone on TikTok or learned about it, it's different than anything you could possibly imagine. It's hard for me to get my mind around it, but that's their fluency. They're fluent in this world of TikTok, which is 15-second videos that goes from one topic to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. That's how they share, that's how they interact, that's how a lot of them view the world. And I think our view and our framework is a lot different than that. And so I think figuring out how to provide this information and all these things we're talking about to those minds is a big challenge and a long run challenge. I don't think there are answers to that right now. I don't think there can be. I don't think anybody knows.
How do you teach them economics?
Well, I do it very old school. We're back face to face now, and we go step by step, problem by problem, and they put their cell phones away and laptops away and have to pay attention as much as they possibly can. And so they for the most part, they can do that. And they're actually glad to do that post-pandemic. They like being, for the most part, back in the classroom and having face-to-face interaction. But they're in a class that meets certain times on certain days. And so that structure and framework is already in place. I don't have to create that structure or framework, and neither do they. That comes from the schedule. This, you have to create structure and framework for the learning process. And many people are in here will join their own groups or start their own groups or sit down and read the book by themselves because they're interested. That's what we do. But what I would argue is that framework is different for them.
Yeah.
And so that is what I think has to evolve over time and will evolve. I think it will evolve, but I'm not sure, maybe some people would have some ideas about how do you translate this to the TikTok generation? That's the question, but I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that.
Tom, your comments just now reminds me of the word hunger. Is this something that we can help build hunger among people to whatever they want?
Yes, and I think that's partially the answer. If the hunger's there, I think it doesn't really matter what the medium is.
Right.
If it's a book, if it's online, if it's an ebook, if it's a video, if it's a TikTok, 15-second. If you're hungry for something, you're going to seek out that information because you're hungry for it.
Isn't it a double-edged sword also? Like, the resource is so amazing, the internet, but it's also mind-numbing. Some of these kids, their mind's mush. If they don't get that 15 seconds of stimulus, they're on to the next 15 seconds, to the next 15 seconds for 6-7 hours a day or something like that. It's like,
you've just stated the problem or the challenge right there.
There are two hands.
the paradox of a blessing and a curse.
Everything has costs and benefits.
Darlene,
Darlene Sartori, you're up next.
and then Richard
Oh.
Warren.
I want to comment on that though. Go ahead, Darlene.
Wow, you really hit my soft spot, something I've been working on for many eons of time as to what needs to, or what we can do. And I now I'm retired. I'm busier than ever, but it's now time for us to get, to get forward. And one of the things that we can use is technology, of course. And I've been working with the program that's called the Jail to Job program, and that's a captive audience. And they are hunger, and I've created a chaplain's course that I'm teaching, and I'm teaching it through the chirps. And so it's been everyone that I have done it with so far is helping to build intentional communities. They often call themselves the island of misfit toys. And a lot of them are misfits. And then, we're building intentional communities. We're building, putting together the Light and Life Centers to develop them in every county. We are there's just so many things that are being developed, and it's just a matter of every one of us have got an idea out there. So I've stepped forward, and I'm opening a conference system that's open 24/7, that we'll have people all around the planet. We're already starting it in Africa and India, that we've got people that are starting to do this, and we're doing it, reading the papers and it's just, we're just really beginning to wrap our arms around the Israel project. And so I've already had 3 or 4 people that have 3 and possibly 4 that are wanting to go to Israel to help out over there. And it's just a matter of wombatting, what we call it, word of mouth, buy and tell. And he mentioned, Tom mentioned economics. This is where we get them, with helping them to be able to build businesses around marketing all of these different projects. And I have a whole list that I created when just before my husband died in 2010 that we were working on, because we really feel that the younger generation are really hunger for what we have to offer. And so we started comparative theology back there when we had the church. And there's just so many things. So I will send you a list of where we're at, but I've held off because I just really felt we weren't ready, because there's a split among those who think the world isn't ready for the Urantia papers and those who say, yes, they're hungry for it. We just have to learn how to market it. And
Darlene, go ahead. You can put that list in the chat, or
no, I'll have to send it. It's a long list, and I'd have to sit here and type, but these are things that we created, and we just now loaded up today, the new website for the Urantia Society. And sorry about that. I can't hang it up anyway. We created the dynamic of the ideal universal society. And so we're going to be building that as everybody can contribute. And we put together an ideal ads network where people can post free ads, because if I wanted something done on my property, I'd like to hire somebody that's already reading the Urantia papers.
Hey,
But
Darlene,
if I
we've got-
don't know
we've got
it, I
three
don't
other
know how to
people.
reach out to it.
I
So,
think we've got 3 other people and we're getting short on
okay,
time, so.
all right, thank you. I just couldn't miss the opportunity to say, hey, there's a lot of people like us out here that's got a lot of good name. We just gotta get our working together. And
Darlene, do you have a website?
yes, that the one that'll be right now, I do have the idealnetwork.biz, because that's what I help people do, is develop businesses,
All right.
build businesses, small businesses. And
Okay.
but it'll be the UrantiaSociety.org will be the one that I'm just loading up this today. And then it'll be the other one will be the Ideal Universal Society. So it depends on which side you're working. If people are already in the Urantia movement, you'll want to send them to the Urantia Society. That's where it'll be focused on. And then
If
the
you
other
could, if you could put, Darlene, could you put the websites in the chat?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you
But
so much.
Don't go
Thanks,
rushing
Darlene.
there, because they're just now went live as far as the
Okay.
the domain today. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
And if you the other thing that we need right now, we need a tech group. People that are building websites, hosting companies, and that's what we're building right now.
Okay, thanks, Darlene.
Oh,
We're
the
gonna
other
move
thing
on.
is tourism for the kids.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you. Put it in the chat.
Thanks, Darlene. Let's go to Rick Warren. Rick, you're up next.
Greetings, fellow Agandanters.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Future finalitors. I've got a bit of a sensitive question. Maybe Sue or others can address this. Are competing organizations a good idea when it comes to book sales and volunteers and donations? Are we wasting time by duplicating, say, the prison placement program and other things that we find in both organizations?
The answer is no and yes. No, it's not good to compete. Yes, we are wasting some time by duplicating effort. We're trying to fix it.
Collaborate.
Well,
That's what, just invite them to collaborate. That's how to do it. Find out who's doing what, where, and then we can work together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Go ahead, Suzanne, you're up next.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful day, and I've had those moments of being deeply touched by the power that we are when we come together and the words that have been spoken. So I just wanted to address the counter to the younger generation and their brains are mush. There's a new generation in their late 20s, early 30s looking at flip phones. It's a new thing because they're recognizing that these phones are taking over their lives and diminishing the quality of their lives. So remember the spirit of truth, how Jesus illuminated that. So I would ask to always remember when you take a very extreme view of something, please think of the opposite, because we need to have the reality check of, we don't know always what's going on. We just tend to buy what we see and hear on the internet, but there's a whole other world happening in consciousness that doesn't get covered by the media. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
One more.
Rick has been waiting to talk. He's been calling on other people, but
Okay,
he has his hand.
We don't have any more questions, but I'd like to make a comment to follow up on what Tom was saying. We're talking about, using technology and how to reach young people with that. And I'm gonna do a little advertising here, I guess, not really, but just to make you aware that we have been involved for the past year with a project that's trying to do that very thing, of using the technology that the kids are familiar with today and bringing the Revelation, Urantia book, especially part 4, to them through a project we're calling the Jesus Metaverse. And that's what Darlene was referring to about the Israel project. But what we're doing is taking, Gabriel Reinberg has basically I think invented a new method of learning with this metaverse, with these nodes and this, basically it's a neural network that takes part 4 of the Urantia book and makes it to where the student, no matter what age they are, can go in and study whatever point they want using modern technology. And it'll bring, we call what we use data curation. And we bring all those points from the Urantia book and from the untold story of Jesus and all that stuff together and make it to where they can go in and search by people, place, topic, location, or whatever. So they can basically educate themselves using the technology that they're familiar with. So, but just look that up. It's called Jesus Metaverse. And I think it's a great project and we've been heavily involved with it. And we got Mike Clark has a question. Go ahead, Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. He's joining the room. I'm sorry. He didn't have a question. So that's it, I guess.
And the good part is he didn't hear you because he wasn't in the room.
Oh,
Could I just ask real quickly, could we hear from our filmmaker, our documentarian? Because I think you might have a lot of insight on that, since what you're thinking about in the context of your project would have to appeal to younger people. And, you know, you would be familiar with how to present, that would be your whole area. How do you present something like this?
I mean, yeah, I mean, the project that I'm working on right now is about the human side and the history of the people that were involved in the early days of the event that we've been discussing today. And so that's my focus right now, as far as how you present the Urantia book to people. I guess I won't weigh in. But that story is a very compelling story to me, and I think, yeah, the human side is the most compelling thing from where I sit, and the thing I'm most interested in.
And
Yes.
you are?
I am what? By
Jesse.
name? My name is
Oh.
Jesse. Yeah.
That's
Jesse Thurston.
That's
Yeah.
Claire Thurston's son.
Yeah, Jesse Thurston.
Oh.
I was already in the introduction.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm here. That's what I'm here doing. Also, I've been recording in addition to the Zoom recording, I've also been making my own recording of the events today. And yeah, not sure exactly what form it's going to take or when it will be a thing that's shared, but it's something I'm working on.
Great.
Yes, we were really pleased to be working with Jesse and planning the program so that this could be recorded and used. It's great. Thank you. Yes, one more. Yeah.
Just a thought, has anybody considered maybe taking this vast amount of information, taking the most, I mean, everything's important, but taking the most significant parts, and maybe reducing it to like a small little book, highlighting the main things that you want to convey rather than somebody tackling 2,000 pages or 196 chapters. You know what I mean? Just make it like this is what it's all about in a nutshell kind of deal, you know.
I'll follow up on that. There's a lot of secondary work.
Yeah.
out
Oh, there is, okay, I
Trying to
didn't
do
know,
that.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, there are many secondary works that try to do that very thing.
It's reduced it, like.
Yeah, to condense it down,
Oh,
basically to topics and subjects and things like that.
Yeah, Paul, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, that's a good idea. And what, Paul?
Well, along this line, I hesitate to talk about it, but I try to do what you're talking about every day. I try to write a poem and then find someplace in the Urantia book that goes along with the poem. And I try to spread that to Facebook. I'm not much further than Facebook, but that's what I do. So I don't know if anybody's ever read any of those at all, but I try to capture something about a spiritual concept and expound upon it in a poem and try to show where that comes from in the Urantia book. So
Thank
I don't know if it is affecting anybody, but I try to.
Don't you see our little heart emojis on your poems? Don't you see our lovey faces on your Facebook page?
Do what?
Don't you see our lovey faces on your poems?
Oh, yeah, I do. I do. I
There
see
you
some
go.
Read
lights.
them.
It's not exponential, but it is.
Well, I don't want to cut off conversation, especially if someone really has something they want to ask or say. But we've been proud of staying pretty much on schedule today. And it has been a celebration. And I wanted to share one closing, and it's short, that the forum used. And it also answers a question for you. And I'll tell you what page it is. It's page 53 in the original. And this book would do that. So the group in here can read it from page 53. And it's paper 3, the attributes of God, and it's at the end of that paper, the very end of paper 3, which would be section 6, but the very last paragraph. And some people have asked this question when they read the detailed table of contents in the standard reference text. At the very end of paper 53, it says, the benediction. And people have said, what is that? Where did that come from? That was something that just evolved among forum members. They loved that particular paragraph so much that they would end every forum meeting with it.
Paper 53?
I don't think it's the forum.
Who was sending it? Was
It
it
was the
society?
Orvanton Society.
Did Orvanton start
Yeah,
that?
actually it was, I think originally Al Leverns's study group, and which became the Orvanton Society. So they're the ones who ended it.
They're the ones that started that. We'll see how much we learn. But all I know is by the time I came to meetings here, we were saying the benediction at the end of our study groups.
Let me clarify that it must have been.
What was that, Ken?
It must have been sooner because it was in the first printing.
Ken has a point. This must have been sooner than that, Larry, because it was in the first printing. It's always been in there as the standard reference text, the benediction.
Oh, I'm not arguing that.
Oh, okay.
You were saying,
Who
The
used
forum.
it? First Society used it, or Bantam Society used it. It got used as the benediction.
yeah.
But it had to be used by the forum before the book was published.
I understand you to meant that the forum always ended their meetings saying that. No, they did not.
They didn't always.
It was the Orvanton Society, or that's
Yeah.
what I remember.
Well,
So Barbara, maybe you could actually read that as,
Oh,
as
yes.
sort of the
Yeah.
closing of,
Yeah.
of the gathering.
Yeah, that's what I was planning to do if we were all done and still on time. Read it together, and then just we'll wish everyone many blessings on your journey, and how I think we've all been inspired and strengthened by our time together in celebration. Everybody ready to read?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Clary, page 53?
Page
At the very, it's
53.
the last paragraph, page 53, it starts, God the Father loves men. That's the
Oh,
paragraph.
yeah. There you go.
All right, here we go.
God the Father loves men. God the Son serves men. God the Spirit inspires the children of the universe to the ever-ascending adventure of finding God the Father by the ways ordained by God the Son, through the ministry of the grace of God the Spirit.
It was a lovely service. That was, people would sometimes say that, or at least in the study, in Al Leverns's study. It was a lovely service.
Yes. And it was used in a lot of different occasions, not just forum meetings, but it did start somehow with that early group.
Let's say goodbye to our friends on Zoom.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for the great.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for showing up.
Aloha.